Welcome to Tilt Talks. My name is Adam Roberts, and I'm the producing artistic director of Tilt Performance Group, a theater company I co-founded in 2013 with a mission to shatter disability stereotypes through inclusive theater. Throughout the upcoming seasons of this podcast, I'll be chatting with company members, staff, volunteers, and community partners about their stories and what Tilt means to them. This is Tilt Talks, shattering disability stereotypes one episode at a time. Hey there, everyone. Adam Roberts here. I am so excited to be doing our second episode of Tilt Talks. We got so much great response from our first episode with Kristen Gooch, and I couldn't be more excited to welcome our second guest, who has been a veteran Tilt company member for many, many years since our second production ever, Free to Be You and Me. I want to welcome Toby Al-Trabulsi. Hey, Toby, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Hi, Adam. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming on. We couldn't imagine doing Tilt Talks without the Toby. Toby is quite the star when it comes to people talking about various different roles that he's played, because Toby, you've played a wide variety of different roles for Tilt, right?
Yes.
I mean, and probably some roles that people wouldn't be surprised by, and maybe some roles that people would be surprised by, because I think that's what we like to do in the arts, right? Is to keep people on their toes.
That's right.
So yeah. Toby, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but if I remember correctly, you were a student of Robert Pearson's at the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you talk a little bit about your sort of growing up in the theater at TSBVI? Is that the first place that you were introduced to the performing arts?
It wasn't actually.
Oh, let's go back further then. I love it. Let's go back further and hear about Toby, on stage or off stage, I don't know, in the beginnings.
Sure. I was newly blind. I was about 11 or 12, like a little sixth grader. Yeah. And I just was entering middle school, and I wanted to take Spanish, really. So, I was learning Braille, and they didn't think it would be feasible for me to learn Braille in Spanish and English at the same time. So they put me in drama.
And the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I was very upset. I did not want to be in drama. Like, what? But it turns out they kind of had to teach me some of the things about the class, what was a script, what was improv. I learned about Harpo and Groucho Marx, and that was where I first learned about some of that stuff. And I had to, I ended up subbing out for one of the performance and production students, the 7th and 8th graders, because they were sick on opening night. And so I had to, it was a really small part, but it was exciting. So it was fun. Yeah, that was my first.
And what was the part? What was the show?
I don't remember the part, but the show was called Hard Candy.
So then you got into high school at TSBVI, and how did Robert Pearson and your work with Robert, and also in the theater, sort of influence you and shape where you are?
Well, I'll say that before, this doesn't quite answer your question, but before I got to high school, I took 3 years of art, just art.
Visual art?
Yeah, just an art class.
Wow.
Because I got fascinated with art after that. And that took all my electives out. So I just got interested with it and creating and making. And when I got to high school, I didn't need to take any more electives because I had wrapped those all up pretty much. But then my English instructor at the time, Robert Pearson, was also doubling as the drama instructor. And he, said, "Are you going to do it?" He said, "Are you going to, I'm holding these auditions for shows and I'll be directing, and it'll be lots of fun." And I was like, "I don't know." And I was in 10th grade around then. So he says, "Well, just come by and read. And if you don't get it, it's no big deal. I won't fail you out of class." No, he didn't say that. But so I read for the part, and they said, "Oh, well, read for these other parts." And, then they liked the part that I read for. It was 10 Angry Men, and it was juror 10. And so then it just kind of snowballed after that. It was really fun way to meet people and make those connections. So
that's incredible. And then I got to know you in Tilt when we did Free to Be You and Me, which was Tilt's second ever show. And that happened in the fall of 2014, I believe. Wow. And it's 2021. How can that be? Obviously, I remember you doing Free to Be You and Me, but the first show I really remember getting to know you on truly and seeing you shine was really Flipside. It's a production, for those who are listening who may not know. It was called The Flip Side, and basically The Flip Side was a collection of 6 10-minute plays that were produced back to back in the same night. And one of those plays was a play called The Interview, and I cannot remember the author's name at this moment in time.
Oh, yeah.
But The Interview. And in The Interview, and it was the only play in Flipside that had one actor only. And Toby was that actor. Toby, can you talk a little bit about the premise of that play and then what it was like to do a one-person play?
Well, it was funny. It was one of the few comedies in that piece too. So the premise of the show was there's a man going for an interview, and he thinks that he's going for an interview with a live person, but he is interviewing not with a woman named Vera, but with an AI named Vera.
Yes.
And he is not deterred at all, and he wants this job no matter what. And he is bound to get it, and he is boisterous and enthusiastic and exuberant and all those things. And it was very fun to play that person, because it's just like absurd. He's just laughing because I wish I could remember some of the lines, because it was just so fun to play. It was just walking in and saying like, "Oh, there's just a bare table here. Well, where's all the people? Oh, it's just me." But I think it was just fun to play against myself, and it was very challenging.
Well,
it was also very rewarding.
Absolutely. And that is the funny thing about that play, is that even though you are interacting with a scene partner, that scene partner is artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah. The scene partner we had an offstage actress doing the voiceover, but essentially it was just me interacting with her voice. So it was ostensibly me being on stage.
Absolutely. And it was a riot. I remember every night people just couldn't stop laughing. There were some great one-liners in there, and you were able to keep that up. And you, Toby, have played a lot of comedic roles, but you've also played villainous roles for Tilt. And I'm curious to know, do you have a favorite kind of role to play?
I don't know if I have. I enjoy playing villains, but I love playing villains.
What's your best villain laugh, Toby?
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, my best villain laugh.
Yes, everybody needs to hear it.
If you insist.
Please. Oh, that's so awesome. I love it. Amazing. Amazing.
I love the myriad of roles I've played. I think there's some roles I'd still like to play.
Which would include what?
I think I'd like to play someone in love. Or maybe like an anti-hero.
Interesting. Well, your song that you wrote for our production of Gratitudes kind of had to do with that, right? Renaissance Romeo?
Yeah, I think that was an amazing show because it challenged me at a really trying time. During the pandemic I'm referring to, I was really low and really depressed, like many of us, but I felt kind of disconnected, and I just kind of put all those feelings into a place where I felt non-judgmentally like I could rearrange them, and then there was music around them. And I had a lot of help thanks to, Boy and you, Adam. And it was great because I didn't ever think I could write a song, and now I know I can.
Absolutely. And I think that Gratitudes is probably one of my very favorite Tilt projects to date, because I love song cycles and I also love original contributions to them. And so I think having each of the members of the cast write their own song about something that they're grateful for was really impactful. I loved it.
Yeah.
Can we go back to, I guess, 6th grade, Toby, where you had us?
Sure.
And can we talk a little bit about, so you have what some people might call an acquired disability, right? In terms of your blindness.
I went blind, but it wasn't necessarily a part of my main disability. My connective tissue disorder affects the entirety of my person, like my heart, my eyes, my skeletal system, which requires different parts of me, which is why I'm a wheelchair user. I use a cane for my vision, and I take calcium supplements, et cetera, et cetera. But my connective tissue disorder, for people who want to look it up, it's called Marfan's syndrome. That's not the reason why I went blind. I was in the hospital with some other conditions going on at the time. But yeah, so I acquired that pretty quickly, my blindness.
And one is born with Marfan's syndrome, correct?
Yeah, it's diagnosed at birth. It's a genetic mutation, usually on the 15th chromosome.
Very specific.
Yeah. And it affects not one part, but the entirety of the system.
So, Toby, you have done a lot of performing in a lot of places. You've performed with Tilt, but you've also performed outside of Tilt. You've performed, as we said, at TSBBI. You've done a lot of performing, and we've had a lot of very in-depth and complex discussions about theater.
Right.
I'm interested to know, do you think that there is a particular perspective or a unique framework that disability brings to the way that you experience theater, either on stage or off stage?
You have to take the need of the cast or your company or your troupe or your band mates into account, because even if you are a guest artist or what have you, you have to give your needs over to the director or the company manager or whomever is in charge, and be open and communicative, because your body is your tool. It's your instrument. And if you're hampered in any way, it's not going to, you're not going to perform in the best way possible. And I think that structure is important. I think communicating with your theater mates, your playmates, creates a better sense of comfort and ease and cohesion between all involved. And that's not a temporary want. That's a necessity in the disability community. You need to provide that support, or else the performance will suffer, you know. Like my needs, for example, to clear that up quicker, I am a blind wheelchair user, and the things that I need for my creative access requirements are, I need to know the blocking, how long scenes are, the general time requirement, prioritization for everything, because it's not exactly something that I've mastered. Yeah, maybe what is it? But I need electronic scripts, right? That's an example of something that I would require.
Sure. So something that is given to you like in PDF, for example, or in Word.
Right. But for example, I couldn't just go and cold read something.
Sure.
I couldn't be expected to wing that unless improvisation is built into the audition or built into the company as like an expected part of the communication style. Like, just tell me what you think the intent of the scene is. Tell me what you think this person is feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like that. That's how. I guess that's what I'm getting at. Is like there has to be a communication of intent for people's like consent between all parties involved.
Sure. So one of the things I think, if I can piggyback on that, perhaps, that I certainly have become better, I think, as a theater artist overall, no matter what project I'm working on, Tilt or not, is foreseeing those kinds of moments. So foreseeing moments where backing up 2 or 3 steps, for example, from where we're at in this moment and saying, in order to truly have prepared and give adequate resources for any actor to prepare to do their work in the space, I need to back up a couple of steps as a director and to try to anticipate needs, resources, and things like that to be in place. And one of the things that I think, you know, is different that I learned to be better at as a director overall, that we did at Tilt, and that's how I learned it, I should say, is that when we devise, and for those who are listening who don't know the term devise, it's creating a production together. When we devise a piece, we really need to have the script itself finished pretty early on so that we can get those scripts brailled, or we can get those scripts in electronic format, so that actors have enough time to become familiar with the scripts before we get on stage or in the rehearsal room and start to block. Because you can't just kind of glance down at your script and scribble in notes the way that a sighted actor could, right?
Right. And I think that's something that you're always very good at. You keep the big picture in mind and very mindful of everybody's needs. So that's something I'm thankful for.
Well, you
I'm not great at structure.
Well, no, I appreciate it, because one of the things I love and always have loved about Tilt, you know, I have a vision disorder, as you know, of my own.
Yeah.
But it is it is only affects my function in that I had to stop driving about 15 years ago or so. So I have adaptations where I can bring music closer to my face when I'm playing the piano, for example. I have my screens brighter, but it certainly does not affect my work per se in the theater to the same degree that a completely unsighted person that it would. And so I have really, really relied on and been so grateful for all of the Tilt company members and all of our collaborators who have spoken up and said, this is what I might need, or this is what another person might need in this circumstance, just to give you a heads up. I have been so grateful that people didn't just sort of, either wait on me to do something that I might not realize, or just not speak up and then not have the resources that were necessary to benefit everyone and themselves. And so I have always appreciated that culture at Tilt of open communication, because why not, right?
Yeah, if you have the luxury of not time constraints, but that open communication style built within the company, why not utilize it? And you've always been very diligent about that, so I'm thankful about that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, because I work hard on that.
Yeah,
for myself as well. I want to ask you one final question, Toby, and that is, we are seeing the light on the other side of this very long COVID-19 tunnel. I know. I just realized we're seeing the light on the other side.
Yeah.
If Gaia were here, she'd totally crack a joke about that.
Oh yeah.
Metaphor. We're being drawn to the end of this tunnel, right?
Yeah.
Toby, what are your hopes for the future of the theater in America? Here's a dissertation topic for you. What are your hopes for the future of the theater in America, both in terms of access and generally?
My the really needy and desperate part of me says, people in the city will just be so desperate for actors they'll want me and everything. But that's not that's the actor part of me. But the really concerned and cynical part is just like the hiring freeze will get worse, 1,000% worse. So I honestly cannot tell. I don't know. It's going to be much more competitive. Even in my film class, there's people that are getting hired, but it's just like, if you're not following like the COVID restrictions, you're being sent home like immediately.
Sure.
And that's it. And I don't know if it'll be the same for here in the city, but I'll just say my personal plans are to maybe branch out and look elsewhere with other companies, as well as Tilt. I love Tilt, but to examine with other companies that are disability led and not, to see if they'd be open to collaborating.
Well, I love that. And I think that one of the things that is one of our greatest aspirations for Tilt is that we would be a company that intersects with other companies by virtue of our actors, right?
Yes.
That we have actors who go out and pursue other work and other genres and other forms, and that they sort of carry that Tilt emblem with them and that Tilt, dare I say, brand, with them, and that we sort of spread the good news that way. I think that that's really important for us at Tilt, and also I hope for the community at large. I do think a lot of people look to us for examples of access and for examples of inclusion that they want to incorporate into their own culture as performance companies. And so I see every Tilt company member as an ambassador as well for our mission of shattering disability stereotypes through inclusive theater. That's our mission statement at Tilt, as you know.
Yes.
And what is your hope for theater at large?
Theater has to make some huge monumental shifts forward. And the money gets displaced, which, I am not a money person, but I feel that a lot of us in the theater communities will have to reapply for money and things. I feel that we'll all have to re-examine who should be a part of the groups that we audition for. And I hope very strongly that there will be an encouragement for diverse casting in the disability community, because we're out there and we're interested and eager, and we've been working on the craft, baby.
Toby, I always cherish the time that we have to talk to one another. I learned so much from you, and I love hearing your ideas about the theater and philosophy and life and everything. And I can't believe we've already come to the end of our time for this Tilt Talk. How it seems to go, isn't it? I want to thank you for sharing your time and your thoughts with us today, and know that you are one of the pioneers of Tilt Performance Group. You've been with us since almost the very beginning, and you are a stalwart member of the company, and I couldn't be more thrilled that you are.
Thank you so much, Adam. This was a treasure.
Well, you're a treasure, Toby, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone who's been listening to this episode of Tilt Talks.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Tilt Talks, and special thanks to Riley Wesson for editing today's installment. Catch you next time.